Well, good morning, everybody. It's good. I'm back home finally after a week of travel. I do leave again tomorrow for an event in Springfield, and then I'm going to head to Nashville on Sunday for another event. But I do want to tell you something. Last week when I was in Pennsylvania, I got a chance to speak just in and around Lancaster to a large group of Amish growers, and it was funny because I jokingly said, next Friday we have Groundhog's Day, and that's where we're going to yank a would-be hibernating rodent out of its cage and ask its opinion of the weather. And, I did it just to get a laugh, but it was interesting. At lunch, I had several of these Amish growers come up to me and said, well, our groundhogs around here actually aren't typically hibernating much beyond the very beginning of February. I'm like, oh, I thought they didn't come out until March. And then they kind of jokingly told me, like, well, they tend to come out early, they go, they don't really care much about the weather forecast. He says the first thing they want to do is find a new mate. And I said, all right, so maybe that's more about what Groundhog's Day is about. But anyways, I kind of beat the groundhog to a forecast. We still haven't had yet sunrise here across Pennsylvania, as it's still pretty early in the morning. We'll just wait later today to see what he's going to say. So, okay. All joking aside, groundhog skill scores are, they're low. In the last 10 years, correctly predicting spring's arrival, however you define that, is about 40% or less. Now, thinking about that, I just want to be very transparent with all of you. We ask about skill scores in weather forecasting, and I thought it would be fun just because I'm back on high-speed internet and I have some time this morning. I'm just going to talk about it. So sit back and relax. We got a whole lot of great stuff to get into today, and it has first to do with how good are we at doing our job. So we're teasing the groundhog, but take a look at this. The European model, I show it to you all the time, the high-res model, not the ensemble, just the high-res version. These are its skill scores since the 1980s. This is its ability to forecast out 3 days, 5, 7 days, and 10 days the position of the troughs and ridges across the northern hemisphere. So at 3 days right now across the northern hemisphere, at predicting where the troughs and ridges will be, we're about 99% accurate. The model's very good out that far. 5 days out, it's about 92, 93%. 7 days out, it's about 80% accurate. And just notice this, at 10 days out, 50-50. So all of the fun criticism we throw at the groundhog, it's a reminder that at 10 days, our model's ability to tell us where the troughs and ridges are going to be is at best 50%. Now, this is a single run. We make up for that by using ensembles, which allow us to better find error in initial conditions to do a better job at predicting where this goes. So you notice I never show you out there at day 10 to day 15 an operational runs forecast. Okay, that's why we always go to the probabilities. That's why we always go to the ensemble trough ridge pattern. So just want to let you know why we do that. So what about beyond this? Because that's not a spring length forecast. What about the sub-seasonal stuff that we do? Well, the European model keeps track of its statistics as well. And when you look out there at its forecast that go out a month, which of course is in the sub-seasonal time scale, they actually keep track of their RMS error, root mean square error, and they also keep track of that same anomaly correlation coefficient. And it's just to point out that when we get out there that far, these skill scores of about 50% tend to hang on. So when you think about that, it's important to know that it's not a skill score of 0, which is what would happen if you just looked based upon climatology and tried to use that as your guide. It's better, but it's not, these correlation coefficients are not 90% where we could, or 0.9, where we could reliably trust those longer range models. And if you really want to get into this, let's talk about seasonal forecasts. I can at least show you the skill scores from another suite of models I like to use called the NMME. So I often take you to this website and I click around on these dots, but if you click right here on this website from the Climate Prediction Center, you can actually come to their main page. You can go to real-time verification. You can go to the seasonal real-time verification page, which is here. You can look back all the way to 2011 since they've been keeping records on the accuracy of their forecast. I cannot stress how important it is that we do this, that we actually look at if we're building skill in our forecast or not. I'm going to scroll all the way to the bottom, and I'm just going to use the last one that they've done the verification on, December 2022. So just I want to show you something here. North America, if you just have a look here. Now this was for last winter's prediction of May, June, July. So when we were in winter last year, trying to predict 2023's May, June, July, which for many of us in the Midwest endured 45 to 50 days of no moisture in May and June, okay? The skill scores were actually negative. Now, what's the point here? The point here is to tell you that last winter, it would have been wiser to bet against the models. And just to understand something here, they don't always exhibit negative skill, but typically the best I ever see them do is in this 40 to 50% range out this far. And we don't, we don't know the skill score for a given season until it's done. So oftentimes we look at the long range models and we try to make sense of what they're saying, and we go from there to make a case, right? So that's what I do. So I just think that it's good to kind of turn the old magnifying glass back around on yourself sometimes and see what skill scores look like. So I just want to be honest with you where we stand. Now, we're pretty good out, of course, out about a week. So let's get back into what's going on right now. This is the first thing I think we should talk about. Later today, we're going to be watching the evolution, I think, of three important things. There is going to be very strong winds coming into western Texas, and you can see we're going to meet this up with some strong winds out of the Gulf of Mexico. So we've got dry air, and we've got really humid air. And this is going to help later today increase the risk of some strong to severe storms here. That's thing number one. The second thing I'm going to watch, I'm going to stay on the eastern side of the country, is later this weekend, we're going to watch for the development of a low that's been kind of shown up in some of the models in the Gulf of Mexico that is likely going to move across Florida and then really intensify again once it gets over here on the eastern Florida coast. And then the last thing will be, here's the deep low we talked about for the last several days. Here's the one that's following. Remember the whole Fujiwara effect. This low kind of sneaks back in this direction. It's going to fling this one into Southern California, and that's going to be our big event that's going to hit California. And this is all just kind of spurred along by these jet stream level winds, which are just absolutely cranking. So here is, okay, look at this. See this curve out? That is part of our left exit region of this longer jet streak. Plus, we're getting the curvature dynamics of the trough that's here. There's our large omega blocked ridge that's moving up into parts of Canada and the northern U.S. We're going to watch for this to get into this part of the Gulf of Mexico. And remember, still back here, this is the last trough that's going to hit California out of this current kind of atmospheric river event. Okay, from there, let's just take a look at what we've had lately. So this was through 5 a.m. this morning. I'm recording just a hair before 6 a.m., so I don't have the new data just yet. But our last 3 days. And because most of the activity, especially the last couple of days, has been in California, let's just take a close look at California's total precipitation through 5 a.m. this morning. And again, I starting to see, places along the kind of the northwest coast here where we have picked up more than 6 inches of moisture. We've had some good snows getting into the Sierra Nevada. We'll look at that in a second. And then also we'll take a look down here at the heavy rains that have come into Southern California. All along, even in the San Francisco Bay, some places already picking up several inches of rainfall, and more is expected to come. I mentioned the snow. I'm just kind of zoomed in here over. In fact, let's zoom back out a little bit. There we go. We're taking a look here at the Sierra Nevada and how much has been added, in the last 72 hours. And, we have several places in here picking up 18 to 24 plus inches of snow, and a lot more is coming with Sunday's kind of last big push into this area. It's not to ignore what's happened here in and around Detroit in this part of Michigan, but I just know a lot of the focus has been in the west. So we'll keep an eye on this map, right? This is our latest map that shows snow water equivalent. It's in a percentage. And we'll just watch how this is going to change over the coming days as this big round of snow is going to be coming in here later this weekend. But I did get asked some great questions in the comments of the YouTube video, so I thought it'd be kind of fun to address some of those. The first was about the Colorado River Basin. And just to let you know, in terms of snowpack this year, so 2024 is sitting right about here. We're about almost 80% of average. We need quite a bit more. This, of course, compared to, a year ago where we were really racing this thing up. Remember, it got like way above average by the time we got into, this point in April. We're behind average, the average being that dashed line right there. So we'll keep an eye on this because much of the upper Colorado Basin and the lower Colorado Basin is about to get a lot more moisture coming into it. There's another question about some of the big lakes. So I'm going to show you Lake Mead. So as you look at these diagrams, you're going to have 3 lines. The line at the bottom is 2023, the one I'm over here. 2022 is here, and the newest line at the top is 2024. So if you just compare to a year ago, Lake Mead is up, about 30 feet. Let's just round and say it's about 30 feet higher than it was in 2023. So that's good. The lake is starting off pretty high. And I mentioned yesterday that Oroville has already had some protective measures to release some water. And again, the same scenario here. We are at about 842 feet. So the lake level is already pretty high. And just a reminder, by the time we got into June last year where all that snow was melting, it was at 900 feet. Now, I got another question was, how important is the snow versus the rain? And To be honest, for some of the reservoirs, because of the snowmelt that happens in May and June, I would tell you that to maintain good reservoir strength, the snow in the Sierra Nevada and other mountain ranges in Northern California is probably a bit, could be more important overall to California's water health than I think than the rain that does come during the winter time frame. Okay, from here, I do want to show you where the reservoirs stand in California, just because of the surge of moisture that's about to come in. I like to pay attention to the historical average numbers, so the one that's in the percentage on the right in red. And you can see here that we look across the reservoirs in California. Most of them are, above 100%. Some are below, but most of them are above. And that brings me to this, the drought monitor. We did finally see some significant change in this, primarily down here in this part of the lower Mississippi River Valley and the Delta. There has been some change throughout this part of the Western Corn Belt with the improvement of the drought scenario, but we're going to wait on more snowmelt and the arrival of better rains coming up quite soon. The Southwest is going to really begin to improve, especially in parts of Arizona as more of this moisture comes through. And there is decent moisture coming up to the plains with this pattern as well. So this is just your newest drought information from the University of Nebraska at Lincoln. Okay, back to where we started. I was curious as this animation plays here again for us. Let's just go back. I was looking at it mostly to see where it was clear, and I could tell where there's some snow still on the ground. And we've melted a lot of the snow in this area, the area that got hit hard in early January. So after the 19th, this was how much we had in terms of snow water equivalent. The mild air that's come in lately has really kind of erased a lot of that here at the end of January and the beginning of February. So again, this was at our greatest snow extent after the 3 or 4 systems that rolled through with that cold air. And here's where we currently stand. Now, a lot of that has soaked in. We keep looking at these maps every single day because I think they're this important. But since the beginning of January, I'm really focusing on these broader areas here in the central U.S. and the Mississippi, Missouri, and Ohio Basin, which had sizable deficits in soil moisture. But this has since improved to now look like this. Now, there's another question. What do these colors mean? Well, the percentage here is not how much of the soil is saturated. The percentage here is a percentile, so it means it's based on a historical distribution. So if you just think about it, all the years that are NASA's database, we have a distribution, let's try to draw a Gaussian distribution, where you see areas like this, we're way down here in the bottom 2%. And then when you see areas like this, we're way over here on this side of the historical distribution. So honestly, these maps are a comparison map to historical values. I often don't show you their modeled values, and I don't do that because we do a terrible job, and NASA's the best at it, just so you know, but it's very difficult to model soil moisture. We do not have enough observations everywhere, nor do we fully understand the soil types, and all of these things complicate our ability to measure soil moisture. So I often show you the percentile maps as a gauge. It's just, hey, let's find these areas that are under stress, either too wet or too dry. Now, one other thing just to keep you updated on, whoops, I accidentally canceled it there. Let's go back to Mississippi. There it is. The Mississippi River this morning measured 20 feet, 20.72 feet above low stage. So it is making a pretty big recovery here with all of that water finally draining through. Okay, now let's get back to the current forecast. Fog kind of lining up here in the northern plains of the United States. Winter storm warnings out for the Colorado Rockies. It stretches up into Montana and dotted throughout the west. High winds are expected in New Mexico and western Texas today. We still have the flood issues that are running up here throughout the Mississippi River and its tributaries. We have a winter storm warning that is out for the Sierra Nevada. And again, we'll watch these flood watches and warnings resurge again over the weekend as the next system comes on shore. Okay, going from there, I want to talk about these winds in Texas and then the winds in the west. So as I play this through the weekend, we're going to be getting, remember the jet coming in and making that turn? You know, we're coming off of higher elevation here into lower, and you get this added effect of the atmosphere giving you a little bit of downslope off the Caprock, off of the mesa that is in western Texas and New Mexico. But as this weekend kind of plays forward, Saturday into Sunday, it's going to be some strong winds in the south. Then we're going to watch two things, right? Watch the system curl up down here, producing some really strong winds in the Gulf of Mexico, maybe stretching into the Panhandle, Georgia, and Alabama. And then with the system that, remember we talked about the Fujiwara effect, that one kicking around and this one coming underneath, there could be kind of it's like a shake and bake thing, right? You're slingshotting all that. I can't believe I said that. But there's like this slingshot of momentum into California. And this is where the risk of the very strong winds is going to continue to be. And that just goes through noon on Sunday. In addition to this, today the Storm Prediction Center's opened up a bit larger region that has the risk of severe storms. And getting into tomorrow, we stretch here. And then as you work your way into Sunday, it'll be in Florida that we're going to keep an eye on the severe weather. But let's just go ahead and have a look at the high-res models to kind of piece it all together. So starting up at 6 a.m. today on February 2nd, we'll play through the middle of the day today. So heavy snows right here lining up on the Rockies. We get into tonight, and this is when we're going to have to watch for the risk of what could be a pretty sizable squall line of thunderstorms that comes out. Right now, the timing is later, not earlier in the evening, but later in the evening in the overnight hours. So we'll keep an eye on that. Just watch the radar. And then as we play into Saturday morning, Saturday midday, and Saturday evening, I love seeing this moisture spread back into the plains. I love seeing the snow up here in parts of Montana and Idaho. We need this snow pretty badly in this area. But it will be very heavy snow, some of it upslope in its trajectory here, right along the Front Range. So this is one of those events where we look out there Saturday evening, and all of the major towns and cities that line the Front Range, we're getting that low here, so you're getting the upslope flow. So be prepared for this right into this area. Locally, very heavy snowfall amounts. As we then work our way into Sunday, this is when the low really deepens here. Frontal boundary stretches. Remember, we talked about that all week across this area, and it's going to help develop, a very tightly wound low with strong winds and severe storms, I think, that's going to move into parts of Florida. That's noon on Sunday, and that is when the next big system comes into California. It'll be early on Sunday morning, throughout the day on Sunday. So this will be the next one we're going to watch. And that one's going to pack a punch. If you look at what's called the kind of the integrated forecast of two models, the GFS and the European, at the strength or the magnitude of this, what we call atmospheric river, here's the one that we just finished. This is the one that's coming in this weekend. So it's up here in this moderate to strong category. So it's gonna push hard into this area. And you can even see a little bit better if we look at the the precipitable water maps. Now watch. This is Saturday. Look at the moisture opening up for the severe threat here. This is Friday night to Saturday. And then here it comes pushing in. Now look, watch, I love this. There's one low, the other one's on the back side. Guess what? Fling this one in as this one pivots back to the west. That's that Fujiwara effect. So this is Saturday night. There it goes into Sunday. And it just hits the southwest, hits California. And then after that, we get a bit of a break in the west. And that break that comes in here is going to be needed to allow the flood potential to drop. And then we get into like the Thursday, the 8th, and we start to see some moisture opening up in the midsection of the country. And that's what's going to promote a system here. I'll show you in a few moments. We just play this out a bit farther, and I see that around the 10th, there's the potential for adding a decent push of moisture into the Cascades, which we need. We got to get moisture in that area. But this is an operational run, and we're out there 8 days, and you know that skill scores drop off dramatically after about 7 days. So that's why we always have to flip over and look at the ensembles. But before we do that, I just want to bring you up to speed again. Remember how we kept talking about these time periods where the models lose their correlation? They don't do as good of a job. Well, we came off of this time period. We've dropped, but lately they've popped back up again. So skill scores seem to be improving. So as we look at those two models, this is their operational runs, European on the right, GFS on the left. Let's play this through the weekend. See these two deep lows, one here and one here, and then the frontal boundary that stretches between them right into there. Just see how this all interacts as this low moves over Florida while the other one hits California. Gosh, I'm just kind of watching the strength of that system in California on Sunday, Monday. And then we'll just get into our new week, Monday into Tuesday. Look at the rain spreading throughout the Intermountain West, Great Basin, down here into Arizona. And then we play into next Wednesday and Thursday. We're out about a week. And this is the point where there will be some sort of a low that opens up here. And this is just the remnants of what just came over California or is forecast to come over California on Sunday. Notice pretty sizable differences, though, on what could happen on the backside of this, especially with snow. So we're just watching. This is a week out. So, after this, our ability to predict drops off. But I do want to show it to you because I want to get to see if this really does come into the northwest once we get out there around the 10th. All right, we wandered through the models here, but let's look at the end result of all of this. 3 different numbers to give you. This is the WPC, the Weather Prediction Center. This is their forecast. And by the way, they just picked up an absolutely great hire. A colleague that I basically know through the internet. His name is Tomer Berg. He's going to go work for these guys. And man, that was a smart hire. All right, this is their 7-day outlook for total precip. Let's compare this to the GFS and look at the European. Where did I do with the European? Well, it was here. Oh, there it is. Sorry. Too many tabs. So European GFS. Sorry about that. I like this. This is pretty good agreement. And if you look at the models, there's a few places in California where the GFS is significantly wetter. And of course, where you see these blue-greens, the European's wetter. But I can't argue that they both have the same overall scenario through about the next week. On the snowy side of it, though, take a look at this. This would be the 7-day forecast from the European model, total snowfall. And so much of what you see here, which was another 30 to 40 inches on top of what just fell, which we know we got up to 2 feet. This is coming primarily on Sunday to Monday. But take a look at these snowfall totals that'll line up here in the Front Range, getting into much of the Intermountain West with the mountains. And the GFS is here. And the GFS is way more snowy this year in Nevada. It's actually snowier in a lot of places. Okay, what about the probabilities? Who stays drier? Well, next 10 days, this is the chance of getting under 1/10 of an inch. The highest values in kind of the lower 48 are going to be in this part of western Texas, which we talked about. The wetter side of it, let's pop this up here to a chance of more than 1 inch, and that's what we see. Probability of 2 inches and the probability of 4 inches. So again, these values here are still very high throughout California over the next 10 days, which most of this is coming this Sunday, Monday. All right. While we're here, let's go ahead and look at the probabilities for snow. Chance for 1 inch in the next 10 days. And the chance for 3. So this has been an area that's really started to show up in the models when the systems finally come out of Montana late next week, adding more snow into parts of Alberta, Saskatchewan, getting over toward Manitoba, and even into Ontario. But the mild pattern is going to keep snow away from much of the eastern U.S. from the Rocky Mountains east. So there's the chance at 6. Let's just keep going for the fun of it. 12, 18, 24, 36, 48. So the chance of 4 more feet of snow here in some places is 50 to 80% in the Sierra Nevada. Now after that, as we start to work finally toward the end of today, I want to show you by day 10. Now if you want to unleash a lot of cold air, all right, we cannot have blue here. That would represent troughing. We've got to flip this over to ridging. What we notice is past the 12th, 13th, 14th, 15th, the models have all week long been hinting more and more at the development of a West Coast ridge for North America. We also talked yesterday, well, maybe at this time, the polar vortex might sit here, way in the stratosphere. And it's just becoming more supportive of cooling things down east when you get way out there at the end of the forecast time period. So when I show you these 5-day sliding windows of average temperatures, it's not going to fully capture this because it's going to be at the very tail end of the forecast. But it's a look, and it's a one we've been talking about. We just need to see how cold we can get past the middle of the month. Now, what do we know about this kind of flow? It's convergent here and divergent there. Could this really invigorate East Coast storm systems? That is possible. But this will be driving cooler, drier air at some point into the Midwest, which is why I think those longer range forecasts for a bit drier in the Great Lakes states and around this area will probably pan out. But this will be mild for the West when this does eventually get there. So we'll have to take a look at how that evolves. But first, let's just look at the week 2 forecasts. With the West Coast ridge building in, we get a drier go of it. And you can see the wetter conditions beginning to show up in the models here, with the CPC kind of opening everything up here to much wetter into the week 2 time frame, wetter compared to where we've been. There's a system coming through. You saw it a moment ago. Now let's get over to those temperatures. Here's today's high temperatures. Interestingly enough, the models, I think, overshot the highs early in the week in the kind of the Ohio Basin here, but still very mild in the midsection of the country. That's Saturday's highs. Getting into Sunday, wow. Then into Monday and Tuesday of next week. It's about there toward Wednesday and Thursday. I mean, there's a lot of very mild air in the middle part of the country. So day 5 through 10, okay, this is not yet to the time period where the large ridge begins to build in this area. But if we look at day 10 through 15, see how this went over mild? It's going to start to decrease the warmer risks here first. So remember, this is still capturing the warmth that'll be there day 10, 11, 12. It's day 13, 14, 15 that the colder air could possibly arrive and really set us up with a little different pattern in this area. Okay, that's my near term. I'm still building a better picture of the longer term, and I'm waiting. You know what I'm waiting on, the MJO. The MJO is forecast. We just kind of follow it to do that. That's a lot of meandering by the 15th. So if it sticks around in this general area, where is the catalyst for change? It's got to pop out here to help things out. There needs to be a subtropical, a tropical, and then an extratropical connection with all of this. And this is the tropical side of it. Now, I have been watching just to see if we're getting any sense of a shift in where, the sinking motion is versus where the rising motion is. And it's just not. This is a pretty uneventful look at the MJO. We do have some stronger westerly wind bursts in here. There's nothing wrong with that. That's what I would have expected given what El Nino is doing right now. But there's not a whole lot of clues in this particular view of what the MJO is doing to add to a subseasonal forecast. In other words, for me to tell you, hey, get ready for this in March or April. So we'll wait. We have to wait and be patient to see how it's going to evolve. But it is a good time to talk about what El Nino has done. So I know there's been some discussion out there that this is supposed to be by January and February, what's often called a Mordecai El Nino. That would be where we start to see a lot of cooler water here and the warmer water stays there. That hasn't happened. So I just wanted, I don't know who's bringing that rhetoric up, but this is not that. You just see a lot of warm water across the equatorial Pacific still. And one of my favorite sites, Tropical Tidbits, this looking at sea surface temperatures. It is important to note that El Nino likely peaked right around Christmas, and it's been fading, but it'll bounce around here for a while. And it's going to be the speed of the fade of El Nino, I think, that will ultimately determine how much momentum we keep in the flow through spring. And just thinking about that, I wanted to pull up a quick animation. South America here, Indonesia, Australia there, this is depth. And this is the warm water that surfaces during an El Nino, all right? And that gets blown back in this direction by the reversal of the trade winds. But we're just keeping an eye on the cooler water that will eventually surface here, ending El Nino. It'll blend, and it'll eventually kind of end it. And it might still take months for this to occur. But we want to watch to see where that cooler water is and how quickly it surfaces to give us an idea on how, what happens with El Nino. So I'll be thinking through this and preparing for next week, the longer range forecast, what this could mean, kind of like we did at the beginning of this week. So as it stands, though, we're going to go straight to the CPC's website. They released some good stuff yesterday, and I think we should talk about it. This is their drought tendency map valid for February. So you can see the colors down here: persisting, persists but improves, removal, drought development. And the good thing is there's no drought development colors right now in the lower 48. Their seasonal outlook, though, starts to increase the risk. Now, this is from now all the way through April 30th in the northern plains, letting it persist over Iowa, persist in New Mexico, but look, improve in Arizona, improve in the south. So I think this is important also to see the improvement here in the plains, to understand what their thinking is with this. And they did also release a brand new 1-month outlook. And to be honest, this was a pretty easy hit for them. That's not a comment, but so much of the front half of the month is going to give us this look that it makes sense, right? We have all the stuff coming in now, so that's a good call. Where it gets into the plains, good call. And it's dry here and dry in the northwest and very mild. We think, though, that the last, let's call it 7 or 8 days of the month are not going to look like this at all. I think there's a good transition away from this pattern at the end of February. And I'm still building those ideas, and I'll give you a better look at them early next week. But just wanted to bring up to speed on the latest February outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. Remember, when you come to this website, go over here to the 3-month and just click on the words, and you can start to walk through their longer range forecast, which, remember, if we just look out there to April, May, June, there is, this worry this upcoming summer of building drought kind of in the high plains, where it's not now, but building it into this area. So I'll keep stressing that and looking at that in subsequent forecasts. Where I want to finish today is South America. In the last 2 weeks, it's been very dry into parts of Argentina, a little bit wetter in southern Brazil, very wet in northern Brazil. That's satellite-derived rainfall. Now, I want to tell you, though, for most of this 2-week time period where it's been drier here, it's not been hot. In fact, we were cooler in southern Brazil, Paraguay, Uruguay, and most of Argentina's growing area. And it's a reminder that when we see above average temperatures down here, this is pretty far south, so it's not, above average temperatures isn't scorching the place. But I do need to show you this. Using new NDVI data for these provinces in Argentina, they were at a max back here mid-January, and they've come back toward normal, the NDVI values have. Now, it's a decrease. We just need to see that. So there may have been some stress on the crop in the last couple of weeks. That's important to note. Is this like major production losses? I don't think so. It's just, just important to note that that's where the values have come down to. Now, there's no question it's going to get hot. It's already hot, and we expect these high temperatures most days to really hit the northern growing areas hard up toward Paraguay, and also Buenos Aires is going to be touching 100 degrees most days. Cordoba, Santa Fe, the Paraná River Basin will be in the upper 90s for high temperatures, but how long does this last? Let's just play it out there. This is through the 4th, and this will be into the 5th. You're just looking for those flashes each day of the heat. And what you're going to notice is that starting around the 6th and 7th, a cold front comes up out of the south. Ready? So this would be the 7th, and there it is, the 8th. See the front? And that's what's going to knock these temperatures back. And we have, therefore, about 6 more days of pretty hot temperatures down here with not much rain projected. Just take a look at it. We just play this out through the next 6 days. Maybe an isolated storm, all the heaviest rains up here in Brazil. So we'll watch to see how this affects harvest of soybeans and planting of corn. And then we get farther here. Storms try to fill in right there. And we'll just have to see if those storms, if they do fill in to Argentina past the 7th and 8th, if it kind of helps revive the crop. That'll be the big question. Longer term, though, the longer range models from mid-February to mid-March are not overly aggressive on redeveloping drought in Argentina. Could it be affected by the MJO getting stalled? Sure. But the models are trying to keep the northern growing areas pretty wet, which means if they do get safrinha in, it will get a good drink to start things off. So I'm going to stop there. I really appreciate you hanging on. Long video today, but we'll talk again next week. Thanks.